Welcome everybody to another live stream repair. We've got two HomePods in today. Let's go ahead and update that repair status here. So the first one up will be from Alex, and theirs has a crackling in the base. So what I'm going to guess is going on here, most likely, is too much DC offset. And if you are curious on any more details on DC offset, I've got a little more info on my website at nixfix.com. If you go to the common issues section and you find the popping and crackling for the HomePods, I give a little more details there on what exactly is going on. But let's just power this up. I'm curious, once this boots up and we wake up the amplifier, how loud of a pop we hear as it kicks on. That's usually a pretty good hallmark symptom of this DC offset problem when it gets too out of control. So let's get a phone here. Looks like they very nicely got it reset for us. Oh, hello. Thanks for joining the stream. We're going to put this in the kitchen, I suppose. Nope, apparently I've already got one in the kitchen. Interesting. Interesting. While that's setting up, why don't we cut apart this subwoofer that we just took out from yesterday's no bass repair. This subwoofer has a roasted voice coil as a result of, yet again, DC offset. That DC was being pumped right into this woofer here, and over time it overheated it and caused it to fry itself. And if we push down under the coil and listen, it's pretty scratchy. And actually, one of the wires going to the coil had popped off the voice coil, probably from it getting too hot. Well, okay, I guess we're not going to tear this woofer apart. We're just cruising along the setup here. It's already done. So let's go ahead. Actually, I don't need to play any music on this for now. What I'm more curious about is how loud the pop is after I disconnect the power. I didn't hear a popping when we booted it up, so let's see if it produces one when we unplug it. Nope, I don't hear anything. Go ahead and plug it back in and boot it up real quick. The bass would drop out once or twice a week with daily usage. It would not pop too much. So that makes sense. The DC offset problem, basically, when you've got a problem with those capacitors that are causing the problem, when they start to fail, the problem itself gets worse as temperature increases. So as you use it, they warm up, they lose their effectiveness, they fail even more, and more problems occur. So let's see if we hear any popping. Yeah, I heard a tiny little pop there, but normally if I heard a pop that quiet, I wouldn't think much of it. So I think what we'll do is we'll go ahead and tear this apart. We'll take a DC measurement. Well, actually what we can do is we can warm up those capacitors first, and then we'll take a measurement of how much DC offset this is producing. Maybe it only gets worse and starts popping with heat on here. And then we'll replace those capacitors, and I will set this unit to the side and do some extended sound testing for probably a few hours, see if we're still good, and go from there. So let's get this pry tool out and start tearing this one apart. Okay, we've got that display off. Let me go ahead and pull up my second camera here so we can all see a little better what I'm doing here. There we go. All right. So then we are going to pry this top off now, this display here. Just gonna get that metal tool to start the gap, and then stick a plastic tool into that gap, get our metal one out of the way, and pry that puppy right out. Easy peasy. Let's go ahead and just touch up those that adhesive on there. It's kind of covering our screws. There we go. We can get that frame off. Yeah, in the case that we can't readily reproduce the issue, what we're going to go ahead and do anyways is just do the full suite of repairs on this that we would normally do in the case of bass issues. The woofer speaker's probably fine, considering the bass often works fine. But we'll go ahead and replace the filtering capacitors. We'll replace that 10 ohm resistor that's next to the subwoofer connector. We're going to replace that 60 volt 5 amp Schottky barrier diode on there as well. Even though this HomePod doesn't have any power issues right now, it's just another one of those things. We know it may, it more likely than not will happen to all units, so we may as well, nip that problem in the bud while we've got it apart. But we'll just do the full suite of repairs on this to see if that's what's going on here in the long term. Oh, that one went into the other dimension, as Northridge Fix would say. Not a problem. I've got plenty of these, plenty spares of these grommets. If you are taking your own HomePod apart and you happen to lose any of your screws or grommets or damage or need any replacement parts, feel free to check again my website out at nixfix.com. I've got all sorts of replacement parts, and if I don't have it on my website, feel free to shoot me an email. We'll see what we can do. The only thing that I can't really get my hands on reliably are logic boards. I don't sell logic boards, but I do have mostly everything else that you could need. There's a bunch of gunk in the screws. It's making my screwdriver not fit these very well. There we go. Yeah. Okay, so we should get that logic cable unglued from this basket here before we start ripping this basket off. Alright, time for the pry. I have a feeling this one's going to be quite easy to get into. I've got a good feeling. And so far it's given up relatively easily. It's not doing too bad. I think I can pry that off by hand now. There we go. Easy peasy. Let's get these screws for the woofer out now. Yeah, what we'll do with this is just go through, do the usual board repairs that we do for all the other no base ones. Replace everything that we can, and then we'll throw it together, just do a quick sanity check that everything is all good to go, and then I'll set it to the side in my room here. After the stream, I'll go ahead and run the, like 4 to 6 hours of music through it, see if there's any problems. Woofer smells fine, feels fine. I don't see any like indication on the dust cap here that the woofer was overheating at any point. So bass speaker is still in great condition. That's good to see. I'm running incredibly low on replacement bass speakers now. I think I've only got 1 or 2 left at the moment. And seems like the average price of a HomePod for parts is getting up there. It's getting more expensive. So I'm not sure how much longer I can offer bass speaker replacements. Hopefully I can get my hands on some more. Got all those gaskets out of the way. We're inside, so let's get that power supply out of the way here. Right on. Last but not least, our amplifier. Alright, we've got our amplifier free. Let's switch on over to the close-up. And do a quick inspection of this board all around. So, this is usually one of the failure points with the Crackling Bass or death farts. This big resistor here labeled 10R0 tends to blow out as a result of too much DC offset, which will cause the farting and crackling, but always good to check this guy here. We're going to go ahead and replace it, even though it looks fine. And we've got our 60 volt 5 amp Schottky barrier diode right here. Has nothing to do with audio issues, but it will eventually fail and prevent their pod from powering up, so we're going to replace that. Everything else looks good on the front, so we'll flip it over to the back. And these are the 4 capacitors that we are going to replace. These are usually the primary suspect of, or the primary source of that DC offset. So we'll go ahead and replace those. And looking at the amplifier IC for the woofer, it's a little, looks a little dirty in there. So I wonder if perhaps there's just too much contamination here. There's just too much crap going on around here, too much dust and such that might be causing intermittent issues. That would make sense to me. But, like I said, we are going to replace all of our parts regardless. But before that, I want to throw all these parts together really quick on the bench so we can get a look at how much DC offset we may be producing before we go into repairs. And again, I'm honestly, I'm not expecting to see a whole lot of DC offset, at least when we first check on it, because that popping sound when we first boot it up and disconnect it from power is rather quiet. So I don't have much reason to believe that we're going to see much DC offset until we warm up those capacitors. So I already got a power supply reattached on there. I'm going to get the logic board cable reattached so that we can plug in. I've got another logic board here with a display already attached to it. So we'll get that connected. I'm going to plug in a subwoofer. And then we also want to grab our power leads here for the power supply so that we can plug the AC power cable in. And I'm actually going to flip this upside down now because I want to be able to hit these capacitors on the amp on the back here with some heat. See if we can make that DC offset jump around. Alright, so we are now powering up. I'm going to get my multimeter turned on here. Make sure these probes are connected nice and tight. Alright, once it's finished booting, we're going to wake it up.
I'm having trouble connecting to the internet.
And we see just about 1 millivolt. And 1 millivolt's totally acceptable. I wouldn't normally be concerned unless it was around like at least 50 millivolts or more. That's when I would jump on the replacement. But in this case, we're seeing a relatively tame result here. So let's grab our heat gun here. Turn that on. And just watch this number as I start heating up that part of the board.
You can ask me to play a radio station, or ask for your music on a different app.
Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm going to... Where's my other phone? I want to play some music on this as I hit the heat on it. Ah, here we go. Connect to Tortured Soul. That's the name of this logic board. And am I signed into Apple Music? I am. Let's play BBC Radio. That sounds good. woofer's working. Let's watch our, let's just put some heat on there again and see if it keeps working. Nah, as soon as you see that? That's funny. I think we've got a repro here. I'll go ahead and zoom into the bass speaker there so you can see it a little better. You can probably hear it as it cuts out since the mic is like right above the woofer there. Literally as soon as I put the heat on it, it goes away. And if I leave it off for a second, it comes back. Incredible. So, what do we do? Do we go ahead and replace those caps and then see if the same thing happens? I think so. Let's try that. Let's get the power disconnected. Carefully flip this back around. Disconnect that logic board. Disconnect our woofer. Disconnect our power cable there. Get rid of this ribbon cable here. Now, I'm not 100% positive if when we go and replace those capacitors and other components on here, if we stick heat on them, if they're going to do the same thing. For all I know, they could just do the same thing again, and that might be normal behavior. And there's not much you can do about that as far as, well, when your capacitors hit a certain temperature, they're going to start losing their capacitance. That's just an inherent design, that's just inherent with these capacitors. So what matters is their tolerance to that heat. How much heat can they handle before that happens? And what I think may be happening here is Apple uses low quality parts, so these capacitors may not be up to the job, may not be properly rated for the heat, or they just simply fail under load. So let's go ahead and get those bad boys replaced here. And I'm going to switch back over to the close-up camera so we can get a better view of that. Nice. And we're going to stick some flux on there. And then we are going to throw a ton of heat on there and just start ripping those old caps off. I wouldn't recommend pulling them off 2 caps at a time if it's your first time, but once you get proficient at it and feel comfortable, makes it obviously twice as fast. But don't squeeze them too hard, or they'll jump around and you'll bump a bunch of stuff around, and you'll just create more work for yourself than you were originally trying to save. Let's warm up our iron so we can retin those pads on the board before we drop on our fresh new set of capacitors here. we are using 16 volt, 10 microfarad, 10% tolerance capacitors here, and their temperature rating, they are rated for their X7R, yes. I've got a part number for the exact capacitors that I've got part numbers for all of the components that I use for my repairs on my website. Again, nixfix.com. Check that shit out. And let's tin these pads up real quick. Okay, those are tinned up. I got some stuff in the way there. There we go. Set our iron to the side and bring our hot air back in here. YouTube says it's not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. However, OBS tells me that we are perfectly green. So, not sure what you're saying, YouTube. Looks fine to me. Let's put some new caps on here. Cool. It says that our stream is healthy again. Whatever that may mean. Boink. As steady as my hands may look on stream, sometimes it's just shaky as I don't know, insert good metaphor here. Sometimes I just cannot stop the trembling. Sometimes I've got perfectly steady hands. Sometimes I wish I just wasn't doing it. Alright. I think those are sufficiently soldered into place. So now we will flip this around and we are going to replace the resistor right next to the subwoofer connector. So that guy, we'll go ahead and throw some flux on there. Put our shield around that plastic connector there. We don't want to melt it down. There we go. Oh, almost. Balls. There we go. Much better. Alright, old resistor out of the way. And break out a new one. Get that new resistor here tinned up. Some fresh solder on there. Same thing for the board. Let's put some fresh solder on there. Very good. Put some more flux on there. Stick our new part down. Alright, that's replaced. Last but not least, let's hit that power diode here. Easy peasy. Boom. Alright. Let's give that board a chance to cool down, and let's clean it up real quick. Okay. Set these old components to the side so we don't short the bottom of the board out on them. But let's go ahead and throw this back together and see what we've got. I mean, and the board's already, those capacitors are still just barely too hot for me to touch with my fingers, so if the base is working with these new capacitors as hot as they currently are, then I'm pretty confident that we've got this this one all sorted out. All right, what do we got? It's booting up, so that's good. We didn't break anything. Okay, so our DC offset here is not budging one bit. So that's good. Trying to get Siri to come up here. Where's my iPhone? Here we go. Let's connect to Tortured Soul. Interesting. So now we have no bass at all. What did we mess up here? Worst case scenario, it's not a huge deal. I have another amplifier board that I can just simply swap theirs out and do a deeper dive on this this specific amplifier here, because you know, if I can't get it fixed here today, I'll put a different amplifier in theirs so they can be on their way, but so I can also take my time to figure out possibly what else may be going on here. But what I'm confused about is why we now have no bass. What is that meme time, boy? Let's see, nothing out of the ordinary. Let's go ahead and reflow all of those capacitors again really quick just to be sure. Alright, let's go ahead and grab a brush here, and we're actually going to, well, first we're going to wipe off any of this excess flux here. And then some alcohol in here and just brush this whole board off, because I wonder if we've got some other contaminants in here that are causing some problems. nice and clean. Let's give that another shot. And just so I know that we've got no bass and not just no sound entirely, I'm going to screw one of the tweeters in too. I've got a spare tweeter that I've pulled from another parts pod already, so go ahead and screw that on in. Okay, and then power. And let's see. Alright, so it's powering up. And no, still no bass. What the heck? Okay. We're going to save this amplifier for a future video because I think I've actually... This isn't the first time I've heard this happen. I've had a few other people emailing me saying that they've gone in and done the DC offset repairs, and they had bass, albeit intermittently working before, and after they did the repair, it's suddenly there's no bass at all. So I want to get to the bottom of that, but I'm not sure we'll have the time to do that on stream right here, and I'm not sure I want to do that on their HomePod. So let's go ahead and just swap their amplifier as a whole with one of mine that I've already got ready to go. At least I think I've got it ready to go. Let's find out. So I'll need to replace the diode on there, but that's all it should need. I don't know why all my phones keep going off. I just want to be left alone and fix this shit. Okay. There we go. Let's go ahead and throw their pod back together. It's got a fresh new power diode on there. Whole new amplifier board, actually. We're going to go ahead and keep their amplifier board to do a deeper investigation as to why we had bass, and then we fixed it, and now we don't have bass. Seems to be a common, not too common, but I've gotten a few email inquiries about it now. Okay, replacement amplifier is installed. Let's put the power supply in. Come on. Quit stripping. we have entire Slack channels, and you decide to DM me the question that could go into any number of those Slack channels, gosh, I'm not IT support. As much as I would love to be IT support, I'm not IT support. So stop DMing me for your IT support. This is completely unrelated from my HomePod repair. This is my day job. I'm just ranting. And then they get upset when I don't give them the answer that that they didn't want. And it's like, well, I'm sorry, but that's what I know. If you want to know more, we have channels where you can ask these questions. Okay, let's plug this up into power really quick and just do some sanity checks. Make sure we didn't forget anything putting this back together. Okay.
I couldn't find that in your library. Would you...
Alright, power's up, volume buttons line up nice and even, and we've got bassy sound there, nice and juicy. So we're going to disconnect this from power, set it to the side for some extended sound testing just to make sure that we're all in the clear and good to go for this guy's pod. But now, for the sake of the stream, we will put that one away and break out our second HomePod for repair today, which comes to us from, let's see, Catherine. theirs has a new issue that we haven't had on the channel yet. So they're saying theirs has no sound whatsoever. I'm pretty interested in. I told them, I was straight up. I was like, I'm not sure if this is probably something I'm not going to be able to fix, but I'd be willing to take a look. And I don't charge for anything if you don't. If I can't fix it, there's no charge. If you want it back, you can pay for the shipping for return shipping, but I'm more than happy to take a look at something if we're not sure if I can fix it or not, and just simply not charge you if and that's just how all my repairs go, and that's how I feel it should be. Alright, so let's get this connected to some power. Booting up. Let's go ahead and update our repair status here. Okay, interesting. So it has finished booting up. It appears to be factory reset, but we didn't hear anything when it finished booting. You know, normally there's that factory reset like chime sound that it makes. And yeah, I've got the setup prompt up on my phone here. But no sound was produced. So what we'll start with is prying off the display and the logic board. We're going to put in one of my logic boards just to see if that is the source of our problems. Most likely the logic board is fine and we've got something going on with the amplifier, but we will find out. Does not seem like this one's been taken apart before, so I don't have any reason to believe they bought this used from somebody who did a failed or bad repair attempt on it. Yeah, I see no signs of previous entries, so most likely that's not what's going on. Okay, old logic board out of the way. Let's plug a new one in, or not a new one, but a known working logic board that produces sound. And let's get that connected to some power. I'm hoping their problem is with the amplifier, not the logic board. If it's a problem with the amplifier, we can repair or replace that amplifier. If it's a problem with the logic board, unfortunately, there's probably nothing I can do about it. I don't have any good logic boards. I don't have enough of good logic boards to use for repairs or for selling. So let's see. Yeah, I think it's the amplifier, because this is not cooperating. Yeah, it's not making any sound, even with my good logic board. So let's continue on with the disassembly and see what else we can find. Or better yet, yeah, let's crack it open. Okay, we've got the amplifier here. So I'm curious if there's anything visually obviously wrong here. But everything looks to be in good condition. Nothing smells weird. Interesting. So, I thought that's interesting. I wonder if that's the problem. Let's get the close-up camera here so you can take a closer look at what I can see. I doubt this is the problem, but it makes me wonder. So I'll have to look it up. I'm not familiar with this chip yet. I haven't had to work with it before. But this, look at how nice and uniformly colored all the letters on here are. This is another amplifier board. And now let's look at Kathy's board here. See the E, like the whole CHN, and then the E is especially dark, but that kinda looks boogered. I would wager a guess this may be the source of our no sound, but I'm not sure. Let's look that part number up, because now I'm really curious. So this is... Oh, I didn't realize I didn't switch to the up close. Well, there, now you can see it. So here's what that one looks like. And now here's what that one looks like. Looks kind of burned. But let's try to find the part number for this. See what it does. So this is, it's got STM32L on it. Let's see if that gives us anything. It is an ultra low power microcontroller. Oh, DAC too. It does a lot of stuff. Okay. Yeah, I can totally believe if this was, this may be our culprit here. Because if the DAC, if the whole board's DAC is dead, then you get no sound. Well, I kind of want to try. Half of me just wants to replace their whole board with another one that I have on hand, and save attempting this replacement for another video. But I really, really want to see if that's what this is here. So what we're going to do is find ourselves a parts board, one specifically that hasn't had no sound problems in the past, but this one had no bass. So, and if we take a look at the chip there, the same chip on our parts board, the lettering on it is much more even and uniform. So let's go ahead and try to pull this guy off here. See if we can't bring that other board back to life. This is going to be a real challenge, trying to get this all off. All right. There we go. Came off without a problem. So let's see if we can get theirs off of their board. Alright, did we bump anything there? No, I think we got... Oh, yeah, I think we bumped something. Oh, no. Oh, yeah. Alright, I think I bumped too much stuff around there for me to really want to bother trying to fix this board anymore at this point. So what we're going to do is just grab another board from a parts pod here and just use that instead here. I'm going to want to keep these parts together because I do want to try this. I do want to see if this fixes it, but we are starting to run on time here. Where's my, here we go. We'll set that to the side. And set that to the side. And I have, here we go. We have our parts pod that we used yesterday to harvest a good subwoofer speaker. We're gonna go ahead and get that amplifier board from it and use that to repair Kathy's pod here. Alright, we've got our replacement amplifier here for Kathy's pod, harvested from another pod. I believe this one we need to, yeah, it needs a new power diode here, so let's go ahead and replace that really quick. Get a new diode out. Pull the old one off. Okay, now let's throw this together real fast and check for any DC offset before we throw this back together. Alright, booting up now. And we've got essentially no DC offset, so that's pretty good. I think this one's all ready to go back together. what do we got? Do we have a fully working HomePod again? Or are we mistaken? And if our repair worked, when this boots up, we should hear the setup chime. Aw, yeah. That's what's up. We've got sound. So, I think we've got everything that we needed to fixed up today. Not quite the way as originally planned. Just to recap, the first HomePod that was sent in had Crackling Bass, and we took our hand at doing the usual DC offset repair, and for some reason it stopped producing bass entirely after that. So we just went ahead and replaced their whole amplifier with another one that I had on the parts shelf. It's got a new power diode, and it's been checked for any DC offset, so that one's all good to go. And then we moved on to Kathy's pod here that just didn't have any sound at all. And lo and behold, we go and there were no obvious suspects other than that DAC there. So we tried to replace that DAC, but we accidentally bumped a few of the components near the DAC off out of place. So that's going to take a little more time for me to repair, but I'll do a separate video for this hopefully. But we went ahead and replaced their amplifier with again another one off my parts shelf, and got this one producing sound and ready to go. So hope you guys all enjoyed this live stream for and if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments or shoot me an email. Check out my website nixfix.com for all of your HomePod repair needs, and I'll catch y'all in the next one.